Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding guest. We'll be talking about an outstanding topic, one that you're familiar with, Dick Biondi, documentary. Our guest is Mrs. Pamela Enswaller Police.
That's right.
All right. And that police, of course, is P-U-L-I-C-E.
That's right. You're not under arrest.
So good evening, Pamela.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very happy that you've taken time from your business, literally from your business schedule, to be with us on the Community Forum, to tell our listening audience about the great person, Dick Biondi. And I understand he's approximately, well, he will be 87 years old in September.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
87, and he is, Dick is an icon, a radio icon who's been broadcasting on the air for over 6 decades.
Wow, I'm going to be learning about Dick right along with my listening audience. Now, my listening audience is approximately, well, Comcast is approximately 100,000 people, but we're online, and so if you have not been known over the world, you will be after this show, because
Sounds good to me.
all of my listening audience have to do is go to drbrooks.tv, and they will listen to the show at any time. But tell our listening audience, first of all, Pam, a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Okay, well, I grew up in Villa Park, Illinois,
Okay.
a suburb of Chicago, about 20 miles west. And actually, I was born there, and it's my father's hometown. This is a long story here.
Okay, okay.
So my father went, during World War II, was in the Air Force, and he went over to Australia and didn't know what to expect, thought there was just going to be kangaroos over there and boomerangs. But over there he found some beautiful girls, and one of them was my mother.
Okay.
So they got married over there in Melbourne, and Dad went back to the war. He was up in the Philippines fighting. And after World War II, my mom became a war bride, which means, for people that aren't familiar with war brides, the U.S. would send ships around the world to pick up the brides and the children of the veteran, the soldiers. And it actually was all around the world. Italy, Indonesia, England, and Australia was one of them. And so they would give them free passage back to America. So my mom came over after the war, and then I was born, and my sister was born in Villa Park. And then they decided to go back to Australia, where my mom grew up. And so they did for 5 years, and I grew up over there in Australia, and I had, my 2 brothers were born there. And eventually in 1955, we took a ship back to America, and we've been in Chicago ever since. Well, I have. So that's where I grew up in Villa Park, and I, like most kids, teenagers back in the 60s, I was 13 when WLS Radio in Chicago, it was known as the Prairie Farmer Station at the time. It was country western, more or less. And they switched their format to 24-hour top 40 music. And boy, were we happy. All of us kids were just going crazy, because up until then we couldn't find a lot of rock and roll on the radio. And it was just wonderful, because there was all these new disc jockeys, and they were all talking about us and our music and teenagers, and it was very exciting. But the most exciting of them all was from 9 to midnight, and that was Dick Biondi. And Dick Biondi was like nobody we had ever heard. He was just this wild, crazy, goofy guy that made us laugh. And we would go to sleep every night with our transistor radios under our pillow, because this guy was just so much fun to listen to. And he introduced us to all the latest music. And he seemed to know all the rock and roll people. He knew all the bands. And he was very exciting. So I became an instant fan. So that's how I got introduced to Dick Biondi. And in 1961, I got the opportunity to meet him at a local shopping center Hillside Shopping Center. And it was just, I was so excited. I can't even tell you. And it was a Saturday, and I begged my father to drive us over there in the station wagon, and he did. But he brought my best friend Joan and I, and we were big Dick Biondi fans. Mm-hmm. So my little sister tagged along with her best friend, and they didn't really listen to Dick Biondi, but they just were curious. We got over there, and Dick was there, and I was so excited. Oh my gosh, you know, I've been listening to this guy on the radio every night. I was just like, this is the guy, you know, so I'm running over there. And do you know, he was the nicest man. He just was so excited to see us. He was asking all about us, and I thought, wow. You know, he was the most popular disc jockey in Chicago at the time. I mean, I didn't know this. It turned out, as I did my research later, I found out he was the top disc jockey in America at the time, 1961 and 62. He was voted #1 top 40 DJ, and the guy did not have an ego. He was the sweetest man. He just loved his fans, and you felt it. So when I met him, I was pretty much surprised at, you know, wow, this guy is really nice. And so I decided to start a fan club for him. And boy, did that change my life right then.
Okay.
Because I was a kind of shy kid hanging out in the suburbs. And all of a sudden, I'm running a fan club, and I'm going into the city. I'm taking the L, and I'm going to sock hops, and I'm meeting Dick wherever he goes, you know, and I'm going down to the WLS studios and hanging out there on Saturdays, and it was a lot of fun. And that kind of started my relationship with Dick Biondi, which just lasted a lifetime.
Yes, and you are now the director of the Dick Biondi
film.
Yeah, documentary now, you know.
I'm making a documentary about his life, and it's actually through my eyes as a fan. So it's kind of from the viewpoint of all of the fans that he just has so many fans and people that love this man. And you know, there hasn't been a documentary. I kept asking Dick, you know, are they doing a story about you? And he told me a couple years ago that they were. Well, this was a couple years before I started my project. He said, yeah, somebody's approached me, so I kind of let it go. And finally, I said, Dick, you know, what's happening with that documentary? And he said, well, nothing really. And then I started thinking, the wheels started turning, you know. But, you know, I had not done a documentary film before. This is my first film. So I was actually retired when all this happened. I thought I was done. I grew up in the Chicago area. I worked in the Chicago area most of my life. I've been in the restaurant business with my husband for many years. Then we got divorced, and I ended up trying, you know, doing different things, and then eventually I fell in love with video production. I just discovered it in the year 2000, and it was like, wow, a light went on for me. You know, I finally found something I really wanted to do. So I started learning all about video. I went to the local community college, and I took classes, and I just loved it. And I ended up starting my own video production business, and I started doing weddings and events, dance recitals, and then I started interviewing people about their lives, and that really, really turned me on. That was like, wow, I love this. So that's really what I wanted to do. But I did do some of it, but you know, then I eventually retired, and I went over to LaPorte, Indiana, where my sister lives, and I was over there for a while, 9 years actually. And my mom was still living with me at the time, our elderly mom. And so I met this filmmaker named Patty, and a documentary filmmaker. And it was a year, about 6 months later, my mom passed. Yeah, and I was alone, and I was retired, and I had made a beautiful garden for my mother, and you know, I loved the garden, and I would be out there working in my garden, but I kept thinking, I want to do something else. Something was calling, you know. And one day I had told my friend Patty about this secret dream that I had about doing this story about Dick, and she said, well, you could do it. And I really didn't believe her at the time. I was like, you know, I know a video, you know, when you make a video, that's one thing. But when you make a documentary film, especially an independent film, it's like your own thing. You know, you have to find your own funding, you have to get your own production, you find your editor, you advertise it, promote it. You're doing the whole thing.
Now, where did you get your training from to do this?
Well, you know, I learned, like I said, I was kind of, it was in the year 2000, so I must have been probably in my 50, 60, something like that, when I first started. So I started late. I'm a late bloomer. And like I said, I took some classes over at the local community college. I probably took about 3 or 4 classes. But then I joined a group of people called the Illinois Videographers Association. And I got to meet other people making videos, and I started working with some of them, and they invited me to work with them on some of their weddings and their projects. And I started doing weddings, then I would have them come and help me, and they're a great group of people. They're now called the Chicago Video and Film Professionals. I think I've got that right. They changed their name, but they are a wonderful group. Anybody that wants to learn about video and documentary, I highly recommend this group. But
I would say that one of the greatest assets that you have, no matter what you have done, you're passionate about what you're doing. And that's what people have to be if they're going to be successful in any field, any profession you're in. They have to be passionate about it.
You are so right. I mean, I can tell you from, I mean, I'm going on 5 years now with this. Well, it's over 5 years since I started this project in March of 2014, and it's been, it's been rough. It's been like my friend Patty said, you can do it, and her words stuck in my head, and I didn't even believe her. I thought, but I got to try. And I just did whatever I had to do. And to tell you the truth, Dr. Brooks, I never would have thought I would be sitting here doing a show like this, because I used to be very private and very shy. And I would never have the courage to sit here and talk in front of a camera or on the radio, and now I do.
well, I, from the same circumstances, I was very shy too, and but you never know.
No, you don't.
Until you just do it.
Until you find that thing that lights your fire, and you just.
But what keeps me going is the people that I interview are fired up and ready to go. Like, for instance, like you. I've been interviewing people that's passionate just like you for years, and that's what keeps me going. Well, what stations were you was Dick Biondi highlighted?
What station wasn't he on? And you know what? He's been fired 25 times during his career.
Wow! And
proud of it.
I wonder, is that because of the uniqueness of his presentation?
It's a combination of things. Dick was a personality. Back in the days of personality radio, I mean, DJs could play the music they wanted. They could talk and act goofy and tell stories and jokes and slurp his coffee in the microphone and just be a nut. And of course, we kids absolutely loved it. We couldn't get enough. And but then, radio's changed a lot. And now they have something called, I've heard, the 8-second rule, where the DJ's got 8 seconds to talk. And then he's got to play some music or a commercial or something. There's a lot of changes in radio. It's been very much, it's kind of put a muffle on the DJs, to be honest.
Well, the music that made him likable is what type of music?
Rock and roll.
Okay.
Rock and roll music. Dick was there when rock and roll began.
Okay.
In fact, Dick started out, well, let me tell you about Dick. Dick's dream was to be on the radio, and how it happened was that when he was 8 years old, he went to visit his grandparents in Auburn, New York. He's from upper state New York.
Okay.
Little town called Endicott.
Okay.
And he went to visit his grandparents for the summer, and he was running around town, and he discovered a radio station. And he was enthralled with this, and he would go and watch every day. He would stand outside, he would watch the announcer, and one day the man invited him in, and he said, "Hey kid, can you read?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, here, read this." And it turned out to be a commercial for Brotan's women's clothing. And he didn't know he was on the air, but when he got home, everybody said, "We heard you on the radio." Well, Dick that was it. He fell in love with radio, and that was all he wanted to do. And that's what he did all through high school. And when he graduated in 1950, he got his first job, which lasted 3 months, and he got his first firing ever.
Okay.
But then he put out his resume, and he got hired down in Alexandria, Louisiana.
Okay.
We're talking Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
And he's down there, and he's learning how to, he's finding his voice. And he ends up doing a show called Jam and Jive, and he was playing sepia music, which they called, rhythm and blues. Before it was rhythm and blues, was called sepia music, and that's what Dick was playing. And he actually he got to meet and introduce people like Fats Waller before he was famous.
Okay.
Not Fats Waller, sorry, Fats Domino.
Fats Domino's, and yeah.
Fats Domino, and Joe Ligginson and the Honey Drippers, Ruth Brown, the Five Blind Boys from Alabama. He said he just loved it. He learned so much from that. And so when he got his next job up in Youngstown, Ohio, it was a rock and roll station, the first one. It was when rock and roll was just breaking. And that's when he turned to rock and roll, and he brought with him that rhythm and blues sensibility. He always loved the black artists. In fact, one of the first records he played on that show, that rock and roll show, was Little Richard.
Oh, okay.
And in storms the program director. "We don't play that kind of music here."
Okay.
And luckily the boss said, "Oh yes, we do." So, but Dick always was there trying to introduce the records, and he loved all the artists. He had high respect for everybody, and that's why the artists still love him to this day. I mean, and I have a lot of artists in my film talking about Dick Biondi. People like Frankie Valli, the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson and Al Jardine from the Beach Boys, Tony Orlando, Gene Chandler, the Duke of Earl, the Spaniels. There's a lot of great people in my film, including radio people too.
We want to know, I say we, like I mentioned, me and my listening audience here, want to know the story about who is your intended audience?
Baby boomers would be number one, because I'm a baby boomer, and this is the music we grew up on.
Okay.
And my film takes us right back to the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Okay.
And that we play that kind of music. We tell Dick's story from the very beginning, the roots of rock and roll. We go through all that. We talk about radio and how it's changed over the years. And all along the fans are piping in with their stories, the boomers.
Okay.
But this film really would appeal to anybody who loves a little bit of history of rock and roll, a little bit of history of radio, to learn about what life was like, when radio was the thing that people did. I mean, we had to have our radio.
Okay.
That was it. It was in the car. It was everything we did. We had our radios with us.
Okay. I know I have a cup here that you have provided, DickBiondiFilm.com.
Yeah, that's our website.
And the cup was...
It's just a gift for you.
Okay, right. And
your coffee will taste better in that cup.
Now, how are you marketing the production that you're making?
Well, we have a website, DickBiondiFilm.com.
Okay.
And we're on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. We have all kinds of YouTube videos of some of the interviews we've done with a lot of the recording artists and entertainers and radio people, and even Dick. We interviewed Dick twice at the WLS studios. And then, he gave us permission to come to his sock hops and all that. But as far as, how do we promote it? I actually started out with my Facebook page trying to build an audience. And we have done that. We have a good following. We actually have a grassroots people that want to see this film made because they love this man so much.
So it's very few people in this area that have not heard of Dick Biondi, right?
That's right.
I don't know how outside of the area though. Is he?
Oh, Dick is actually a national figure.
Okay.
He started out, like I said, he's worked in every major market in the country. He worked on the East Coast, and he kept getting to be the most popular. He was always the most popular guy in that time slot, wherever he worked. From the moment he hit the airwaves in Youngstown, Ohio, that was it. So from Youngstown, he went to Buffalo, New York, and then after that, he got fired again, and he came to Chicago, and that's when I got to meet him.
Now, this firing, why, they just didn't like his presentation or what?
No,
The music?
well, there were some different reasons why. You know, sometimes it was just a new program director came in that had different ideas.
It wasn't because of music or anything.
Sometimes it was the Dick.
I know he's very aggressive.
Yeah, Dick can be a little, he's got that Italian temper, and
okay.
But there's a variety of reasons why.
Right.
So.
Because you said how many times?
25 times.
25 times.
Yeah. But he always got rehired.
He's able to move along. Now, when will your documentary be finished?
Well, we hope it would be finished this year, but we
And you've
we
been
don't
working
know.
on it for how long now?
Since March of 2014.
Okay.
That's
okay.
over 5 years.
Okay.
But we don't know because right now we're in post-production. We've been editing. We're about 2/3 of the way through the story. So that's good. We had a big fundraiser.
Oh.
We had, see this?
Okay.
We had a big fundraiser called the Good Times Rock and Roll Fundraiser back in April at the Bourbon Street over on the south side of Chicago. And wow, we had an unbelievable turnout. And so many great artists. Actually, a lot of them are in my film, that were there. And the New Colony Six, you may not be familiar with some of these because these are rock and roll bands.
No,
so, but the New Colony Six was there.
But my audience probably.
Yeah.
So.
Scott May of the Ides of March was on the keyboards with the $100 Quartet. The Cave Dwellers were there, the Meteors, Bagshot Row, Southside Exiles, Pete Weldon of DJ Enterprises, and Scott McKay was our MC from 95.9 The River.
Okay.
And we just, oh my gosh, Jim Peterick ended up surprising us from the Ides of March, and he came out and did a set, did a couple songs. Mm-hmm. The Buckinghams came out. These guys all love Dick Biondi so much. Mm-hmm. Carl Gemarisi, he's the lead singer of the Buckinghams, and the former lead singer of the Buckinghams, Dennis Tofano, who lives out in LA, actually flew in, and they reunited for this show that we did. Mm-hmm. And then Jay and the Americans, Jay came and did a couple songs. I mean, we were so touched because, I mean, this just showed the love for Dick Biondi.
I was so motivated because just because I didn't know him, I know I have a great, like you say, a national audience that did know him. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted my national audience to hear the presentation of his legacy.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't finish what I was saying, did I? This baby boomer brain doesn't always,
Okay.
But yeah, he was known on the East Coast, the Midwest. Then he went out to KRLA in California, so he was known on the West Coast. Then he came to New York City and did a nationally syndicated program that was heard all across America.
Okay.
And then he came back to Chicago, and then he went down south, and he was down there in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for 10 years.
Okay.
So they know him everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have some slides that are going to be shown, and you can use some of those as talking points coming up soon. But I want you to enlarge upon something about Dick Biondi. You mentioned about a sweater he's wearing, and I mentioned about the uniqueness about the sweater that he's wearing.
Yeah, well, look at this sweater. I mean, is this wild or what? We saw that sweater. This was back at the WLS years when I had the fan club for Dick. And we saw the sweater in the local community discount store. And the minute we saw it, we said, that sweater was made for Dick Biondi. So we chipped at our allowances and we bought it for him. And lo and behold, well, my mother, she saw it and she was like, oh, he's never going to wear that. Guess what, Mom? He wore it on the cover of his album.
Yeah, amazing, amazing.
He loved that sweater.
Yeah,
So yeah, this is actually an album that Dick dedicated to teenagers. He loved teenagers.
Okay.
He loved his audience, still loves his audience. Even though we're old teenagers now, he still loves us. But yeah, and this was just kind of a lot of little poems and, you know, spoken word vignettes, and there's a little bit of music in there, but mostly Dick telling stories and dedicating it to the teenagers. And, you know, it was pretty special. I mean, it was his way of thanking us, I think, you know.
You know, he was calling himself, what, the wild...
Itralian.
Itralian. Because he is Italian, right?
He's Italian, yeah.
And he's one of the original screamers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's how he's known.
Yes. He certainly is, and he's been screaming. Well, he finally, you know, he calmed down a bit. You know, we all do.
Right.
Most of us do, anyway.
Also, one unique, by the close of his program, he always say, "God bless and bye-bye, Duke. Thanks a million for dialing our way."
Yeah.
He always in his program.
Yes, he did, and he told me that was to his wife. I'm sorry, no, his father. Excuse me. Somebody told me it was to his wife, but Dick told me it was to his father. So that's what I'm going by.
Okay, all right. America's top oldies disc jockey, top 40 oldies disc jockey. That's what he played, I guess, right?
Yeah, top 40,
yeah,
rock and roll, pop music, I guess you could say pop music.
Right. Okay. Well, what is your your initial goal is to finish up your documentary, but what is your ultimate goal?
Well, my ultimate goal is to thank Dick for, you know, well, I guess for a person who's given so much of his life to other people, as Dick has, because he promoted so many artists. We really didn't talk about this much, but Dick promoted a lot of artists. He worked with everybody from Elvis Presley to he introduced the Beatles. He's the first disc jockey to play the Beatles on the radio.
Oh.
And he kept playing the Beatles. This was a year before they were on the Ed Sullivan Show. And back then, nobody wanted to hear the Beatles. They didn't know who the Beatles were, and they didn't get it. But Dick kept playing it. And in fact, when he got fired at WLS, he took the record out to California and played it again. And he said the phone started ringing, and all the kids started calling in, and they're saying, "Take that crap off and play the Beach Boys."
Oh.
So a year later, the Beatles were, you know, the rest of the story. But Dick was a trendsetter, and he promoted a lot of people. And a lot of the people that he promoted are in my film, and they were thanking him for, you know, doing that. Because some of them really thank him for their careers. This man has given so much, and not just to the artists, but to the ordinary people. Because he had a gift for making people feel special. Okay. And I think that's what drew me to him, because I kind of had a low opinion of myself. I didn't have much confidence. And I think when this fact that he made me feel special, I was like a magnet, you know, to him. And I think a lot of kids were. But he's helped a lot of people. He's always ready to do a fundraiser. You know, he has his Toy for Tots. Every year he would have his toy drive. He brought in so many toys for kids, needy kids. He's done that his entire life. And that's going to be in our film too. So for a man who has given so much and brought so much joy to the world, you know, I feel that his story needs to be told. It should be told, and I've dedicated myself to do that. So
now, if youngsters in high school want to get involved in filmmaking, what type of background should they have, and what type of courses should they take it? in school, college?
Well, things have changed a lot, you know, since I've been doing it.
Okay.
And I think they're even teaching video production in high school now. This is what
okay.
I've been told.
Time to
And
change, yeah.
there are so many courses out there that you could take, and there's a lot of schools where you could go to learn about filmmaking. So there are a lot of options out there. But to tell you the truth, I think anybody nowadays, it's so affordable to get cameras and gear, and you know, everybody's got a cell phone. You can literally make a documentary with your iPhone. I mean, that's how good the quality is now.
Wow.
You can even edit it. It's amazing. But if you're really passionate about it, you'll find a way to do it. And there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube. There's all kinds of, you just have to Google it, and you just wouldn't believe how much information is out there in the world. And you know what? If anybody wants to talk to me about it, I'd be happy to share whatever I can.
Now, how would he get in contact with you? Now, you mentioned about your
Well, on my website. There's my email. It's thedickbiondifilm@gmail.com. But it's on the website too, so at dickbiondifilm.com.
Now, you're not doing this alone. You have a group working with you, or you?
Well, you know, I started off by myself, and I had some friends who helped me. My sister helped me, my
Okay.
good friend Stephanie, my good friend Patty. I've had some filmmakers come along and give me help. It's been wonderful. I mean, I can't even tell you. And I mean, I haven't been able to pay anybody yet. I haven't had the money to pay anybody. I mean, they did this just out of the goodness of their heart.
Okay.
I mean, I just feel so blessed that, you put your dream out there and suddenly people come.
Speaking about the dream, when I first started, at 93, I guess, was the radio. And, 1990 was radio, 93 was TV. And I had one person volunteer his time for TV for 7 years. He's so excited about the program, you know.
Ooh, isn't that
but
great?
you probably won't have that now, right? Probably.
You know, I have had a lot of people help me. I mean, this fundraiser that I just told you about was all volunteers.
Okay.
All volunteers.
Oh.
Nobody got paid. All these bands came. I mean, it was just, I had 30 volunteers that came and were part of it. It was an outpouring of love for this man. I'm not kidding you. And we raised enough money so that I could actually keep putting the movie together. We had already shot most of it. We just needed to start putting the story together. So we raised enough money to work all summer. We've been working because of this fundraiser and because of donations. And we also have sponsors. And I didn't mention this, but we've had 4 different PBS stations that want to run this show when it's finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
Already.
Across the country. Youngstown, Ohio, down south. Where was that down south? Around Myrtle Beach, around that area.
Okay.
Chicago, of course, WTTW. And one more out east. But yeah, 4 different stations. And I know there's a lot more that will run.
So he's well known. He's well known all over nationally. So
Right.
they're just waiting for it to be.
Yeah, so
completed.
our sponsors are going to have their name up on the front of our film on PBS. So
Right,
we're always
right.
looking for more sponsors if anybody would like to help.
Right, right. Now, a person like Dick Biondi, did he have a staff to continue his legacy of this?
Do you mean when he was on the air, on the radio?
You're right, right.
Well, when he came to WLS, he had his own secretary, Lorraine. I knew her very well.
Okay.
She would handle his mail, and he had mail like you would not believe. Sacks and sacks of mail. He was helicoptered around the city and the suburbs all over the place because he was like so popular. Everybody wanted a piece of him, you know. I don't know if he had any other staff. I don't think so. But mostly, he's kind of been a lone wolf, you know. Most DJs just kind of have to do their own thing, I think. And I think I really can't answer that question as far as maybe he had some help out in California. I don't know because I wasn't there. So,
But let's lean on you now. You say you always wanted to be a storyteller, right?
yes.
And of course, I mentioned about students that may want to go into document, they have to be able to do writing. They have to love writing, right?
I think so.
There's a lot of writing you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, there is. Or work with somebody who's a good writer, but I think it certainly helps to write.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But storytelling is, that's just something you have to love to do, right?
I think so. And
Yeah.
I've always been drawn to it. And
Yeah.
I've been trying all my life to tell a good story. You know, and for some people, I think it comes easy, but not for me. So this is my story, and I have had help with it. I haven't been doing it alone. I mean, I have people, fellow filmmakers that are helping me, and my editor, Steve Zagata from Videoactive Productions, has been absolutely unbelievable. He's like my partner right now. We go back and forth, and we work out the details in the story, and it's really fun. I found out I love to collaborate.
Okay.
I really do. So.
Now, is this a, how many hours you spend on it? It's not a 9 to 5.
Hours? It's my life.
Okay.
I don't have a life. No, I really don't. I mean, it's like, it's every day. It's like pretty much every day, you know. I mean, I can't stop thinking about it. I dream about it, you know.
So like I said, you dream about it, and it's a passion for you to, you just fell in love with Dick and what he did and so forth. And so that's the thing that continues to drive you to do the thing that you're doing.
Absolutely. And it's also my passion. I mean, I finally found this story that I can tell. And it's our story. It's my story. It's Dick's story. It's our story. All of us who grew up with Dick Biondi, and I just feel honored that I can tell it. You know, Dick gave me permission, and I was just so honored that he trusted me with his story. You know.
You mentioned, and I'd like for you to mention again how you got involved with telling Dick Biondi's story.
Well, what happened was as I said, I was retired, and I was gardening and but I kept doing little videos. I did this war bride video of this English war bride, and I showed it to my friend Patty, who was the filmmaker I was telling you about, and she really loved it. And I also shared it with Dick, and he said he loved it. So I was sharing little videos with Dick, and so he knew what I was doing. And then, after Mom died, I found myself with all this time on my hands, and I really had to wrestle with, okay, I knew I wanted to do it, but I was kind of scared. So I really had to pray about it and give it a good long think, because I knew if I took this on, I was going to have to interview people, famous people. And I had never really done much of that. You know, I interviewed ordinary people, you know, just regular folks, you know. But I was kind of scared, and I thought, well, if I do this, I got to come out of my comfort zone, and I'm just going to have to go for it. But I just said, you know what, I got to try. And it's the best thing I ever did. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was like, I think if you're afraid of something, you really have to just face it, because otherwise you'll never get to where you'll never realize your full potential. I really believe that, and I think I just was always kind of holding myself back from most of my life. So this has sort of brought me out of the shadows. And I tell you what, if there's anybody out there that has a project or something that they want to do, and they are afraid to come out of the shadows, there's a book that changed my life, helped me a lot. It's called The Artist's Way, and it's written by Julia Cameron. And when I picked that book up in the bookstore, I started weeping because she was talking to me. And there's a lot of exercises in it. But boy, it really excavates your soul and makes you really think about, you know, yourself and why you're holding yourself back. And it brings you out and makes you look at yourself. And boy, it changes you if you do that, if you have the courage to do that. Some people don't want to do that. Nobody wants to look at those ugly parts of themselves, you know. But I think if you do, and you can overcome the fear that is holding you back, then you can just blossom. And I feel like that's what's happened to me.
You are on this at the studio being interviewed by another couple that I know. The title of the show was
In a Nutshell.
In a Nutshell.
Alan Dolores Weissman, great show.
Great
people.
Yeah. Tell us about that show. In a Nutshell, what is it?
Well, they interview people, mostly music people, and artists, and then they interview them, and then they have them perform. And their show is wonderful, and they've introduced a lot of artists to other people, and to me. I mean, they've told me about a lot of artists, great artists. In fact, some of them came to our fundraiser, and it's really been a great thing that they do.
They have a great passion for what they're doing. They do. Too. That's husband and wife working together too.
Yeah.
Both of them have the same
passion.
They
are a great team.
Yeah. Now, her background, she's I guess a nurse. She's a nurse, right?
I think so.
But you mentioned about your background, though. But you mentioned that you retired, but what was your profession?
I did a little of this and a little of that, but when I was married, I was in the restaurant business with my husband.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Working
and then
together.
I was in, my sister had a vinyl repair and upholstery business. I worked for her for a few years. I tried real estate. I tried a lot of different things.
Okay, yeah, multi.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I always wanted to be a creative person, and finally feel like I'm fulfilling that dream. I didn't finish telling you how I called Dick up at the radio station.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I get carried away.
Well, you have so much on your mind.
I tell you what, there's just swirling around. So I finally did decide to do the program, the show. And the day I decided, and I was getting ready to call Dick at the radio station and ask him if I could do it, and I was scared. I was like, oh. My phone rang, and it was my good friend Stephanie, and she's a filmmaker. And I was telling her, she said, "What you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to call Dick Biondi," and I told her the whole story. She goes, "Well, I'll help you. I'll come to." There was a sock hop.
We were talking about volunteers and so forth.
I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." So I was like, "This is wonderful." So I called Dick up. And I was all excited, as you can imagine. And before I even finished getting it out, he said, "Let's do it."
Just like that.
So he could feel the passion.
Right, very good.
And then we started from there on.
You mentioned that you're from Villa Park. Did you know very many people in Villa Park?
Do I know many people?
Yeah,
I still have friends.
Because I was a member of the Rotary Club, right? And our district governor was from Villa Park, but I can't remember his name. It was Dick Bundy.
Oh, okay.
But I know, but there's so many people.
Yeah.
Dick Bundy is a large, a growing town, though, right? Is it growing?
Well, I'm not there anymore. But I mean, it's a nice town. There's no doubt about it. I'm so lucky that I got to grow up in Villa Park.
Right.
I really am.
Fantastic. Well, you mentioned about you're not you're still striving for perfection, and that's what we have to do in life. I think all of us are born to succeed. You're here for a purpose. Mm-hmm. You're not here just to be here. You're here for a purpose. Mm-hmm. On your epitaph, it will be date of birth dash date of death. So it depends on what you have done in that dash that counts.
Very true.
Of whether you're going to get to heaven or not. Right? When a roll is called, they're going to say,
did she do good? Did she spread love?
Right. And this is what it's all about.
And that's what Dick Biondi did. And you know what? He's made me a better person, honest to God. He really has. Okay. Because he spread love throughout the world, and goodness and good cheer, and it was always about promoting the other person, giving. Service to others. Okay. And he's taught me to do more of that. And
service above self, right?
Exactly.
You're not interested in becoming a millionaire.
No.
No.
But if it happened, I wouldn't argue.
Right. But service above self is love one another. And to make people laugh, too. I think our scripture tells us that, I can almost quote it. I think it's the book of Proverbs or Psalms 1. Laughter is like a medicine to the soul.
And Dick made us laugh. Oh, my goodness.
And that's all he was doing, right?
Oh, he was. He was just, you couldn't help but feel good when you listen to Dick Biondi on the radio, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times when, kids growing up, sometimes you feel lost. And every night at 9 o'clock, no matter what was going on in your life, you knew you were going to have a good time turning on that radio. So, yeah.
Now, he was, you mentioned that he was married too, right? And he's still married?
Yes, he's married.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he is, Dick was on the air until April of 2017.
Oh, okay.
When he left, he was working at 94.7 WLS FM,
okay,
and which is a classic hit station now. And he left the air due to a leg ailment, and he is now retired and he lives in the Chicago area with his wife, Mary Beth.
He left on his own. He didn't get fired the last time.
Well, he left because of the leg ailment.
Yeah.
I think he did leave on his own.
Yeah.
Maybe he finally didn't get fired.
Finally. This is fantastic. I'm happy that really that you have been taking time from your busy schedule to be on Community Forum to enlighten our people and our listening audience, especially our Comcast audience, about Dick Biondi, because he is a person that everyone should know.
I think you're right.
And you want to keep that legacy going.
I sure do.
We really appreciate that. And we had some slides I think we wanted to show, but on the screen maybe they still would show, but you had sent some slides in. You may, even though it's not on. Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah, that's Dick when he was young.
Oh, which one is Dick?
He's on the left side there, the short one.
Okay.
The first step.
Okay.
And Dick grew up in Endicott, New York, and his father was a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
His mother was a homemaker, but she did work in a local restaurant for a while.
Okay.
And just ordinary folks, and Italians. He lived on a place called the Knob, which was 99% Italian.
Okay.
And it's the kind of town where it actually has these arches over the street, and it's called Home of the Square Deal, because the companies that worked there, it was actually the home of EJ Shoes.
Okay.
EJ Shoes was this huge shoe company, and they believed in giving people a fair deal. I mean, they took care of their employees. They had these little medical clinics. They had parks for them with swimming pools. They had little merry-go-rounds in the park.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because, the Twilight Zone. Who was the man that started the Twilight Zone? How could I forget? I love him.
Well, don't ask me because
he grew up in the same area. Oh, my goodness.
Three things get away from me when you get my age. The first thing that goes in memory.
I know.
I don't remember the other two.
Oh, no.
Oh, here he is, there.
Yeah.
Famous.
But what I was starting to say is, if there's an episode of The Twilight Zone, it has the carousel in it.
Okay.
Because he grew up in the same area.
Oh.
So, yeah. It was a nice town. People actually cared about each other and really looked out for each other. So that's where Dick came from. And I think his roots have served him well because he took that with him wherever he went.
Mm-hmm.
That picture of WCFL, that's when he came back to Chicago in 1967 and was on the air at WCFL till 72. And after that, he sort of disappeared. Oh yeah, there's a picture of Dick and I back when I was about 13 years old, maybe 14.
So you've been knowing him
my whole life.
Your whole life?
Yeah.
Well, here's with his big audience.
There he is at a sock hop. I think that was in Hershey, Pennsylvania. But Dick was used to being in front of big crowds, and he worked with everybody. He worked with Bobby Darin. He worked with Frankie Avalon,
Wow.
Bobby Rydell, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, you name it. He worked with everybody. The Beatles.
It was just in his DNA then, right?
Yeah. And then 94.7, he was actually an oldies disc jockey. That was a station in Chicago that was oldies.
Okay.
And Dick was the lead guy, and he did that. That was the longest job he had. It was 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
So, yeah, Dick's had quite a career.
Now, I'm surprised that I hadn't heard of him, because I like to.
You're one of the few, Dr. Brooks.
Like,
Sorry.
I'm very impressed by the music that he played, but he's on FM, right? FM?
No, he was on AM until, there was no FM when Dick started.
Okay.
When we were talking about WLS, there was no FM. It was
Okay.
all AM.
Okay.
But he eventually got onto FM, yes.
Mm-hmm. When he retired.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, if a person and how they can go to is that Amazon or whatever to get the
No.
cups or where to get the
We get the cups at our website. We
Oh,
also
website,
have
website.
shirts.
Okay. Oh, shirts also.
And we have T-shirts, the short sleeve T-shirts, and pens. You have a pen right
yeah,
there.
Right. Thank you. Right.
It's got the little logo on it.
Right.
Yeah, we have those on our website at dickbiondifilm.com. And, we have so much fun stuff on our website. And in fact, if you go on the homepage, there's a trailer. You can watch the trailer there. You can share it with your friends. And there's all of our links to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You could watch our interviews on YouTube. And there's all kinds of stuff there. And if you really want to follow us and see how our progress is, you can go on our contact page and just fill in your name, and we'll send you an email every now and then and let you know what's happening. So
we mentioned about becoming a millionaire, but did he ever reach that point?
I couldn't answer that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I did check his net worth is like 1.4 million.
Oh, okay.
1.4 million, I think. Okay.
Well, I'm glad to hear he made that, He
Right.
deserved it.
Right. Well, of course, it really just becomes automatic, really, I guess. If you're doing something you love, you don't even think about the
Absolutely.
money there,
Yeah, that's for
Oh,
sure.
we didn't mention about, maybe you did, about the funding that you need to keep going.
Yeah, we do. We actually do. We're actually.
You did mention about a fundraiser.
We got the fundraiser that kept us going through the summer. We're kind of winding down with that. So yeah, we're looking for sponsors. If anybody'd like to become a sponsor, we have a whole page about our sponsorships, on our website.
Okay.
And it explains everything. And or if you just want to make a donation, it's tax deductible.
Okay.
Because our fiscal sponsor is Chicago Filmmakers. And so if we write a check or donate online to Chicago Filmmakers and just put Dick Biondi Film in the, down
Do
on there.
you 501c3?
I'm not, but
Well,
they are.
They are.
They are.
So that's why you write the check to them.
Correct. So it is tax deductible, and boy, yeah, it'd be great. We actually are to the point where we gotta maybe have another fundraiser or something.
Right. Well, you're the director of the Dick Biondi documentary.
And you know what?
Okay.
I forgot to tell you.
Uh-oh.
The name of the film is going to be The Voice That Rocked America, The Dick Biondi Story.
Okay.
Because he is known nationally. He is known across America. So.
Okay. We can't forget that. That's
Yeah.
the title of that, right. This is fantastic.
I really have enjoyed being on your show, Dr. Brooks.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
enjoyed having you, and like I say, I couldn't limit that information because I hadn't heard of him. I don't know why.
Well,
being as nationally known as he is,
But that's why I'm telling this story, because there are people that don't, and a lot of people think Dick is just a local guy. They
Yeah.
don't know that he is this truly a broadcast icon. He is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Broadcast Hall of Fame.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes. Yes, he has an exhibit at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he is a huge figure in the history of rock and roll and radio. And a lot of people don't realize that. So,
I see why now that you are so passionate about doing this documentary, you know.
well, I'm glad you see it.
And you've been knowing him since.
Well, he touched me. He touched my life when at a time when I really needed a friend, needed someone to believe in me, and he did. And he believed in not just me, everybody.
Yeah.
He was always there for people. So he's just a kind man, and we need kindness in this world.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that the stations is highlighted. You mentioned WLS.
Oh, there are so many stations.
Okay.
I mean, go on Wikipedia. Holy cow. They're all listed there.
Okay, okay. Right. Okay. And we end up with the music that makes him likable, and you mentioned all the types of music that he played to make him likable, and it was just his style. He was born.
He found his voice, and this is something that, like I said, he discovered it when he was 8 years old, and that's all he did through high school. And when he left home, his father said to him, "Go chase your dream." And he says he's been chasing it ever since.
That's very important.
Yes.
Very important.
And that's the only thing he wanted to do, was be on the radio. Bob Eubanks, who was a DJ with Dick out in California back in the Beatles days,
okay.
When they introduced the Beatles for the first time out there, Dick was there. Bob Eubanks also did a TV show. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, he said Dick was a radio guy. Like most of those guys wanted to go on to TV or do other things, but not Dick. He only wanted to be on the radio. It's all he ever wanted to do. He said he wanted to die with his headphones on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I since '93, I've been with radio and TV. So maybe I should slow down. That has been my passion.
Wow.
Each week, radio.
That is pretty remarkable. I congratulate you. I mean, it's a lot to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And I try to highlight everyone I can that's doing things in the community. Well, I understand we just have a minute to go, but I want to thank our listening audience for taking time from their busy schedule to be with us on the Community Forum. And I have to thank my producer and my nurse. What is her?
Dolores.
Dolores and
Al.
And their
Weissman.
Their show is
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. And well, because it's not a weekly, it was just a special that they did.
I think it's weekly.
Weekly?
I think it's weekly.
Well, you were a guest on it.
I was a guest on there about a month ago.
So I want to thank them. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Pamela Enswaller, Police, P-U-L-I-C-E, Police, director of the Dick Biondi documentary, the voice that rocked American, the Dick Biondi story. Thank you for listening and viewing another awareness session on Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.